Experimenting is the key to learning, and it's the key to success in your work. This may end up being absolutely revolting, but hey, stick with me, because it may work. You will end up being a slave to it, and then you'll end up with a painting that doesn't work. It's turning out slightly differently, but I don't have a problem with that. I'm Lynn Keddie, and I'm here to show you how I paint expressively. I love painting, and I've always painted, and the style of painting I enjoy the most is to paint what I feel more than what I see. So today I'm going to be painting another landscape. It's very stormy today and quite atmospheric. I'm painting on heavy duty watercolour paper. This is actually the back of a watercolour painting I found, an old watercolour painting of mine that I didn't like at all, and I thought, hey look, don't waste it, let's experiment with this paper and see what we can do, because experimenting is the key to learning, and it's the key to success in your work. So let's get going. I've got a palette of, so the blues that I'm using here are ultramarine blue, and I've got something called Daler-Rowney blue, red shade, and the reason I'm using it is because I've got it, and I'm not sure I particularly used it a lot. There's a little bit left, and I want to use it up in my work, but I want to make quite a dark colour for the sky. I've stuck this up with tape. I'm not sure what tape it is even, so I will have to fill in these marks, and hopefully the whole thing isn't going to fall down, because I wanted to have it on my wall so that I could video it properly. So let's get going. I'm going to use a brush, and I'm going to use a large brush, get my water in the right place, to start painting in the sky, and it's going to be very rough. The brush is this size, and I'm going to just mix up some of Daler-Rowney with a little bit of brown, see what that gives me. Oh, that's why I never used it. That is definitely why I never used it. It's a sort of a teal colour, which is quite nice. It's not quite what I wanted. I'm not sure I've ever seen a sky like that, but let's just, oh, look at that. That's just the wrong brush, isn't it? Sometimes things just don't go to plan. So I've got lots of blackbirds in the sky there, but actually I quite like that. I'm going to have to mix up a bit more. This is definitely the wrong brush to use, it's too floppy. Anyway, let's see what happens. Again, isn't that funny? It's sort of behaving, well, not surprisingly, this is watercolour paper. So I'm using quite a lot of water, and let's see what happens. I'm not sure I like it. I'm going to ditch that brush, my trusty spatula, and see what I can do over here. So I'm going to go to ultramarine blue and a little bit of raw umber to get that lovely grey colour. Okay, that's much, much more like it. See how that's a kind of a nicer deep grey blue, which is what I was after. It's quite difficult using this watercolour paper at this size, I have to say, but let's persevere and see what we can make of this. And that is the thing, is it is about experimentation, and that is really important. I'm doing some really crazy rough marks here just to see what happens. This may end up being absolutely revolting, but hey, stick with me, because it may work. Some more water and do a bit of watercolour type thing on it, just to fill in some of this. Now I've added a lighter colour to get that feeling of storminess, and actually I think I quite like it now. If I can just take this off, I know this is going to fall off any second now, but I've just got to do this. I did have double-sided tape, but that fell off straight away. I might have to work on that. What have I got rid of? The awful, yeah. So there's a bit of a, what's that word? it's when you mix, I can't remember the technical term, I'll have to put that in the, it's when you mix with a dry brush, Segrafito or something like that, I can never remember it. And I'm wetting it slightly because this paper is absorbing everything. But what I'm getting now is I'm getting some actually lovely clouds. This is still slightly wet, and I'm using that to my advantage to get some lovely feeling of clouds going on. So you know when you get clouds that sort of are heavy above and underneath it goes whiter? Well, that's the sort of effect we're getting now. So persevere, you know, when things started off pretty badly, I would say, in the whole scheme of things, you can, you know, you've just got to keep going and seeing where it takes you. I'm not sure, I suppose today I did see clouds that were, yeah, roughly that colour. Now, what I don't want is I don't want the sky to be halfway down the piece of paper and the landscape to be halfway up, because that makes for a fairly boring composition. So I'm just going to press on. I'm going to have to get some more colour out of my palette with the sky. There's a slightly different colour coming in here that I've mixed, that's not a problem. The more variations you can get, the more exciting the painting becomes. I'm going to get a bit more brown on my, this time this is burnt sienna, which is a sort of a warmish brown. And mix a tiny bit of that in with some blue, tiny bit of white, and you just get a lovely grey. Oh look, it's gone dark. Oh, and brown. So I didn't mix that in very well. Oh, never mind. So you can mix on the paper. That's not a problem. Get some more white in. This is drying up here, so I don't really want to go too much over there. I like this little area here, which looks like the top of a cloud, because it's a little bit sharper, so I'll try and get some of that going in elsewhere. And that's really by probably changing my brush, I would say. Anyway, let's just move along. That's much more watery paint. I'll go back to some of that dark that I had. I quite like it. That brown's popped back in again. Can't stay away. Yeah, so I'm just going to grab this brush, which is this was a flat bright, so it's a bit square, it's a bit squashed at the moment. What do we call this? I think it's oh gosh, I can never remember the names of things. Anyway, it's pointed. It's probably called pointed, I can't really remember. And a nice trick is you can roll these and, well, it works on wood. Does it work on this? Of course it doesn't. I don't really know if that's working on at all, actually. Let's press on. So I'm just picking up different shades on my palette. Just going to leave that nice little bit of white there. Because it's interesting. Now the key with this is working quickly, because this dries very quickly on watercolour paper, because the paper absorbs the water and the pigment's just left. So that's why you have to work quickly. I like working quickly because you don't fuss over things and you don't get, you know, tied up in the detail or anything like that, which you don't want to do. It's quite a stormy sky, isn't it? So we've got quite a lot going on here, but I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, well, the top is quite I think it really fits with the bottom. So I'm going to go back to that, but I'm just going to carry on with this because one, I'm quite enjoying doing it, and two, I quite like the results. So I was going in for a very stormy sky. Now I'm going in for quite a sort of some lovely muted beige and blues, which actually is very nice. It's a nice colour combination. I've gone back to, as you can see, the way I'm using this brush is by rubbing it onto the paper as opposed to rolling it, which I often do with smaller pieces of paper or wood. For some reason it isn't working on this. I might sort of roll it a little bit as I'm painting. But very stormy sky. Okay. I'm going to knit back into the top a bit, I think, just to sort of make it feel like it's part of the same painting, really, I suppose. Don't want it to go too light. That's too brown. And straight away you can see how that has made that more interesting. Back to the bottom, may go back to that, back to the bottom. Oh, goodness me. It's quite easy to just adjust these, you know. It's not the end of the world when things, and also, you know, sometimes you want to have the difference, the interesting differences that you can get. I might just leave it like that for now. Oh, didn't mix it in properly. Mix your paint, Lynn. To take that out again. Still a bit too brown. I want to go back to that. May want to go back to that. But you can see I'm just running the brush across the whole painting just to see how that all works. What I wanted to do was have quite a bright foreground because this is spring moving into summer and there is a lot of limey green colours in the foreground, so that's what I'm looking for, but I want some really kind of relaxed, kind of loose shapes going on. So I'm just going to draw in. I've got a flat, quite stiff brush here that I'm trying out. And this is just, again, this is about shape. It's not about detail. I'm just really actually following the line of what I've done with the clouds. I think that needs to be bluer for a distant feel to it rather than green. Just taking some of the colours on my palette and finding colour, and as you can see I'm just running over it again. Quite like that light thing going on there. Now it's about looking for different greens, I think, because you'll see lots and lots of different greens going on in the distance, and I'm going to make these fields, if you like, quite flat. demarcation between fields, you'll have trees, all sorts going on. So I'm using this not very thick. Quite often on wood I'll paint very thick, but with this it's not thick. These days I very rarely use mixed greens. I prefer to just find them on my palette. Now all of a sudden I just decided that that would look really good, just drifting down there. And you just find those things out by just not thinking too much about stuff really. It's never a good idea, particularly for me. You know, as soon as I start thinking about, oops, there it goes again. I need another bit of tape, I think. I start thinking about things, it starts getting very, very tight and not very exciting, and then, you know, it's just about to fall off as well. I'm just mixing up something which I think is quite a revolting colour. No, that works. That blue that I can't pronounce, and some red that I had in my palette. If you mix that together, you get a gorgeous purple, and I think I need a different, you also get red in it because I haven't mixed it in properly. I want more. There we go. So we're getting some darks, which, you know, you have to have those darks, otherwise it just doesn't work. Some marks there, could be forest with a very... Now, I know a lot of people really get anxious about trees and they start thinking, how on earth do I make this look like a tree? And quite often I think people sort of think of the tree and they think, right, it's got a trunk and it's got branches. I don't think like that. I think of the shape of the outside of the tree. So let's say we've got a tree here. So this is the shape of the outside of the tree, and I'm just dabbing it with the edge of the brush. It needs to be greener. That's a terrible colour for my tree, by the way. Anyway, so it's something like that, isn't it? That was a distance thing, except it wasn't. This is more... And I'm just really roughly, I've just now added in a lighter yellow, and all of a sudden you've got the sense of a bit of greenery going on. So we could draw into this to give the idea of branches and what have you, if you wanted to. Then you could paint back over it, because branches obviously aren't on the outside of the tree. And then, you know, carry on with... Oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. But I'm not too worried about it. And carry on with painting in the foreground. Have a nice green going on. It's too dark. Avoid, I would say, in general, putting mixing white in with your greens, because you'll end up with some wishy-washy greens, which you don't normally get. You know, you don't get that sort of very pale minty green generally. So it's kind of coming together. We've got lots of bits that need to be sorted out. I think it needs another colour. It needs more. Let's see. Let me just sort this sky out, because at the moment that's just paper. And I'm just going to go in with a tiny bit of white with a tiny bit of yellow in, just a little bit of yellow in. just, there's a little bit of brightness on the horizon. What does that look like? Does that work? We could move some of that into the sky. We could just highlight some of the clouds a bit more. This is all too dark for me now. And there's me, you know, I started off saying I want to have a dark sky, and what's coming out is not at all what I was thinking I was going to paint. So it's never a good idea, quite honestly, deciding too much about what you're going to paint, because you will end up being a slave to it, and then you'll end up with a painting that doesn't work. Whereas with this, I've kind of said, okay, well, you know, somewhere, because of the way that the colours are mixing and all the rest of it, it's turning out slightly differently. But I don't have a problem with that. I think that does need to be darker. Put a little bit of water on that. I don't know if that's a good idea. All right. Thanks. This is a yellow. Just loosening that up a bit, making some so I'm using this flat side of the brush quite a lot. Just sort of feeling my way around, really. So interestingly, when you paint on this watercolour, or at least when I paint on this watercolour paper, it makes me paint in a more of a watercolour style. Let's just introduce a tiny bit of blue. Don't know what I'm doing here. What am I doing here? Don't know. That might have to go. I'd like this to be more blue, as though it was some kind of lake or something going on in there. This is actually reminding me now of a walk that me and Jo do. Where is it? It's overlooking Bristol Channel. This thing, I don't know what I was doing there. I'm going to just take this out. Probably going to pull the whole thing off. don't know what I was doing. Mistakes are good. I'm going to have to review the way I hold things like this up because it just doesn't work. The paper's just too heavy. But good, we've got rid of that horrible thing. And now I'm going to put something else in its place. Quite think we need a bit of brown in here. That's what we need. We need to have, oh come on, see? Come on! I've got a great big splodge now. Oh well, let's just sort that out. I like that brown in there. Oh, I like that brown in there. That was the thing to do. That brown with that blue, that all works. Gosh, that lifts it, doesn't it? That lifts it. I don't mind the mistake up there. Might put a bit of that in there. And the nice thing about, yes, that's made a difference. That's what we needed to do. That's what we needed to do. So we need also to have some of that coming in other places to lead the eye round. So it's not just in like, you know, one place, because then you just focus on that because there's that colour that's different from everything else. Whereas if you have it there and you lead it through, even if it's only very, very, you know, weird little marks that you might put in, it works. And then I might put in a bit of a dark I quite like those very gentle marks that I'm making with the edge of this very, it's a hard nylon brush, but it's adding sort of field shapes. So I'm using a combination of that, some sort of bluey, purpley, don't want anything too detailed in that background. And, you know, just weirdly drawing in marks just to add interest. So I want it to be, in some case, you know, the tonal, you'll always work on the tonal differences. So you want the dark tones, the mid tones, but you want the dark tones and the light tones to bring your piece to life every time. I don't know what that is going on there. Do we need to? No, we don't. Right, okay. Don't want to take this too far. Do want to have something going on down here. Even if it's just watery water. Again, I'm going to add in some more, just a small layer here, just with some different colours. I say different colours, the same colour, slightly different shades, and that's just adding a little bit of difference and depth. And let's sort this bit of whatever was going on here out, because it's a little bit odd looking. So start like a builder, as we did, definitely, with that funny sky, the way it started off, and then end like a jeweller. Again, trees, or the sort of sense of trees. I want some lights going in here. It's far too gloomy looking for me. Even though, let's face it, it's a dark day. Okay, maybe that was too much. Again, you know, don't take it too far. Don't, you know when to stop, Lynn. Okay, I'm going to, again, just a few sketchy marks. I've got this thing about having some nice bright yellow in it for some reason. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to put that back in there. Not much, just a little bit. I think we're pretty much there. The one thing that's slightly bothering me though is this little bit of white in the sky. You either need to get rid of it or have more of it. And I'm going to opt for, let's give it a go, having a bit more. I'm using zinc white now though, I'm not going to use titanium white. Zinc white's a little bit more transparent. And I am going to add a tiny bit of a sort of a grey, if I can find a grey blue on my palette. I don't need to mix up anything new, just the tiniest bit. Get some white clouds going in. But I've got this great big white bit here, I've realised. Not smart. So I've got to try and get rid of that with some colour on my palette. It's never easy mixing up a colour that works after you've painted the painting. So then when I crop it, which I will do, I'll crop it about there and there, I'm not going to lose this detail that I've got going on here. I think we're done. So there we go. From a slightly sketchy start to quite a satisfactory finish. Here are some details. There's the sky, that was the foreground, and those little trees. Tiny marks that actually look like trees. And here's the final painting. So if you liked this video, please hit the subscribe button and do give me a comment. Let me know what you'd like to hear about next. Let me know any of your problems and what you like painting. And I've also written a book which you can find on Amazon. It's about painting flowers expressively, but I'll be working on a book on painting landscapes expressively soon. So please keep tuned.